There is no ethical consumption under capitalism, or so I've heard. I'm in the United States, and although some people say we've moved past capitalism into a tech lord oligarchy, let's just say it's capitalism for now. Last week, I rewatched my favorite show, The Good Place. If you haven't seen it, it's a sitcom about the afterlife, where humans are placed in the good place or the bad place based on how many points they earn on Earth. You earn points for good actions, like volunteering at a homeless shelter or returning someone's wallet, and you lose points for bad actions, like not picking up your dog's poop or taking the cash out of someone's wallet before you return it. Finder's fee. But eventually, the show reveals that the point system on Earth is broken because no one makes it into the good place for over 500 years. And a demon-turned-humanitarian, played by Ted Danson, wants to reform the whole system. He uses the example of buying tomatoes as a way to show that we shouldn't be held accountable for choices that we don't even know we're making.
Just buying a tomato at a grocery store means that you are unwittingly supporting toxic pesticides, exploiting labor, contributing to global warming. Humans think that they're making one choice, but they're actually making dozens of choices they don't even know they're making.
But what if we did know the choices that we're making? If I know that the chocolate industry relies on slave labor, then surely buying it would be a tacit endorsement for child slavery, so why shouldn't I be held accountable? And while many people don't have time to research where their food comes from, I do, so shouldn't I try my best to create an ethical diet? I've been following a vegan diet for the last 4 years because I watched a documentary on factory farming and vowed never to give the meat industry money again. But I also know that there are plant-based foods that harm humans and animals. There's coconut milk, where young monkeys are kidnapped from their families and forced to pick coconuts for corporations. Or palm oil, which is often sourced by destroying the habitats of endangered orangutans, which leaves them homeless and starving to death. And I know vegans hate talking about almonds because usually people who bring it up are just trying to make us look like hypocrites, but they have a point. 50 billion bees are killed by the almond industry in the United States every year. Am I just a raging hypocrite for encouraging people to go vegan while consuming foods that I know create harm? That's what I'm going to try to figure out throughout the course of this video. Over the next 3 days, I'm going to determine if it's possible to create an ethical diet in an unethical world. Usually when I want to learn how to do something, I just Google it or watch a YouTube tutorial and the internet tells me what to do. But for the first time ever, the internet has failed me. If you Google ethical diets, it's mostly people arguing about veganism or trying to find the most ethical animal product. It doesn't seem like there's a blueprint for what I'm trying to do. One website, Impactful Ninja, has the right idea. However, it brings some bad news about my current diet. Bananas, extremely unethical, fairly unsustainable. Blueberries, very unethical, very unsustainable. At least onions, garlic, and cauliflower are good, but this is going to be harder than I thought. Since there are no hard rules for this type of diet, I'm going to eat foods with the lowest environmental impact, no glaring ethical issues in the supply chain, and aim for organic to minimize harm to insects. Ugh, I hate mornings, which is why I usually drink coffee. But today I'm not drinking coffee because it's unethical by basically every metric. Environmentally, you're looking at high water usage, deforestation, and carbon footprint worse than chicken and cheese. Then there's the slavery. Coffee was one of the main crops that drove the slave trade in the 18th century, along with sugar and tobacco. And while slavery technically isn't allowed anymore, that doesn't mean it completely disappeared. Children are forced to work long days on coffee plantations where even the farmers don't earn a living wage. And sure, there's fair trade coffee and they promise to be different, but I'm not gonna risk it, which is why I'm drinking today's sponsor, Celsius energy drinks. I love Celsius because all of the ingredients are synthetic, so I know I can trust them. It also has guarana root, which comes from this creepy looking plant in Brazil. It has 4 times the amount of caffeine as coffee. It's way better for the environment, and when you buy it, it helps support indigenous populations. Tastes like moral superiority. After getting hopped up on Celsius and hitting the gym, it was time for breakfast. This is just oats, water, and PB2. And honestly, I spent so much time researching peanuts that I forgot to even look into oats, and now I'm really hungry, so let's see how it tastes. It would be a lot better if there were some berries in here. Yeah, it's not very good. It's really hard to find information about oats. I think it's because oat milk has seen such a surge in popularity. So the websites are basically people either trying to sell oat milk or the dairy industry trying to spread misinformation about how oats are harmful for the environment. When you look at the environmental data, oat milk is very sustainable, more sustainable than other plant-based milks. They do use a lot of pesticides, so that's a point against them. But I'm gonna keep eating oats throughout this experiment because I have a bunch of oats and food waste is also bad. After working for a bit, it was time to hunt for ethical food. Obviously I'm biking because cars are terrible, and I biked past my usual grocery store to avoid giving more money to corporations. I just got to the Crescent City Farmers Market, which takes place every Thursday in my neighborhood, and I'm gonna see if I can find some local ethical food. When you're thinking about the environment and food choices, shopping local is not nearly as important as a lot of people think. When it comes to food transport, it actually makes up a very small percentage of total emissions. That being said, I think in terms of treating employees well and not supporting big corporations and even preventing crop deaths, this might be a great place to find food. Farmers markets are expensive. I got 3 blocks of tofu, kale, Brussels sprouts, and strawberries for $29. I could have definitely saved a lot of money getting that stuff in the grocery store. That being said, I'm pretty excited about this tofu. It's got lemongrass and red chilies inside of it. And, you know, I never really eat Brussels sprouts, so it's a nice chance to mix up my diet. I also didn't research strawberries. I'm gonna have to look those up when I get home later. Bad news about strawberries. The industry is riddled with child labor, unsafe conditions, and low wages. Researching everything is more difficult than I expected. For dinner, I air fried that lemongrass tofu and Brussels sprouts, and they were delicious. After one day on this diet, I can see how our system makes it nearly impossible to eat ethically. The biggest problem is the lack of transparency in the supply chain. I bought strawberries from someone who has a farm in Louisiana, but he could be running a child labor camp and I would have no idea. And I'm lucky to live by a farmer's market and even luckier that I can afford it, but shopping ethically requires a certain level of privilege that a lot of people don't have. Sometimes I'll talk to meat eaters about veganism, and the idea of going vegan sounds so impossible to them. They think they'll have to research everything and spend a bunch of money, and that's not the reality for vegan diets, but it is the reality for me right now. I'm exhausted from all this research, and I didn't eat enough today, so I'm just gonna go to bed early. For breakfast, I ate PB2, oats, and strawberries. Basically, my only option for lunch today is tofu and kale, so I guess that's what I'm gonna eat. I made this salad. It's got some vinaigrette that I made a couple days ago with red wine vinegar and olive oil and garlic, which are all okay. And then there's also pumpkin seeds, because I looked into it. Pumpkin seeds are great. They're typically a byproduct of the pumpkin industry, and a lot of pumpkins end up in landfills. I gotta say, this local tofu is excellent. It tastes fresher than what you typically buy in the store, and it has a nice texture to it. I'm really enjoying it. Oh my God, I'm so hungry. I feel like I've barely eaten today. So I'm gonna make dinner. Once again, it's gonna be tofu and kale, but tofu is super versatile. So I'm gonna make a tofu scramble. And then also I found in my freezer this mushroom sausage thing. I think that this is probably pretty ethical also because I bought it on sale, so it would have gone to waste anyway. So I'm gonna throw these in. It's gonna be good. I used nutritional yeast, tahini, and a bunch of spices in the scramble. Typically I'd add oat milk, but it has sugar, and sugar is unsustainable and unethical. It's day 3, officially the last day of the challenge, and I'm very excited about it because I don't even know what to eat. Usually for breakfast, I would want this no-cow bar, but it's got a couple problematic ingredients. The first is brown rice, which is really bad for the environment. Then there's also cocoa butter, which I'm not sure if that's bad, but it sounds like it is. If it comes from cocoa, then it's definitely part of the slave trade, so I don't want that. I am going to continue, not with oats, I'm sick of oats, but with the peanut butter strawberry. I'm just gonna mix some PB2 and dip strawberries in it and then go to the store because I'm very hungry. All right, I'm going grocery shopping and I'm not gonna go just anywhere. I've found what I think is the most ethical grocery store in New Orleans. We are at the New Orleans Food Co-op. I chose this place because all of their produce comes from within 250 miles of New Orleans, which means it reduces carbon emissions slightly from transport, but then also it's going to be seasonal, which is better for the environment. This cauliflower looks awesome. I don't think I've ever had purple cauliflower. I really want this, but rice. This might be okay. Coconut sugar. All right, I found some local sweet potatoes, so I'm gonna make these tonight. I haven't really been keeping track of using plastic or cans this whole time, but it's never too late to start. So I'm gonna get some bulk goods. I'm really hungry and this looks awesome, so I can't verify where the tortilla comes from, and also it has lemon juice, which isn't ideal, but I'm gonna get it anyway. My husband has to charge his e-bike, so we're gonna eat these here. Let's see how this chickpea tuna is. Yeah, it's really good. We had a lovely bike ride home. I was happy to see some Mardi Gras decorations still up, and we saw a second line, which is a small parade typically done for weddings or funerals. I roasted the chickpeas, cauliflower, and sweet potatoes for dinner, and I thought it was dry since I couldn't find an ethical dressing, but my husband and friend said they liked it, so either they're liars or it was pretty tasty. It's been a couple days since the experiment, and after meticulously tracking every bite, weighing ethical considerations, and trying to make the perfect food choices, I've come to a realization that's both unexpected and liberating. Ever since I remember, society has taught us that our primary function as humans is to produce and consume. If you turn on the news, it's all about the economy, stocks, and unemployment. There's little consideration for trying to improve our community or aiming to live a virtuous life. Even the conversation surrounding veganism, which is really a philosophy to avoid animal exploitation, is centered around consumption. Change your diet, lower your carbon footprint, and encourage others to do the same. I feel like we're trapped in this capitalist hell and can't even see a way out. It wasn't always like this. If you go back a few hundred years, we didn't refer to ourselves as consumers, we called ourselves citizens. And while this may seem like a small semantic difference, it actually affects our behavior. One study split people into two groups. The first completed a consumer response survey, and the second did a citizen survey. And the consumer group was more drawn to materialistic values than the citizen group. To me, it seems clear that this overfocus on consumption negatively affects us all, and I can see how my experiment negatively impacted me. I spent so much time researching food and trying to be perfect, and all that time has an opportunity cost. I could have been organizing a protest or volunteering in my community. I'm not saying consumption doesn't matter at all, because clearly there's a spectrum. When you buy foie gras, you know that a duck has been force-fed to the point where their liver grows 10 times its normal size. And obviously that's unethical. Plus, all the issues with plant farming are magnified with animal farming because the animals eat so many plants, and there's human exploitation in the meat and dairy industries as well. But we're never going to change the world by focusing on individual consumption. That's why I'm stoked to work with Pro Animal Future, because we don't advocate individual change. We push for collective action to transform the world for animals, which helps humans too. Overall, I'm glad I did this experiment, and I'm going to keep avoiding chocolate and coffee because it's fairly easy and those industries are terrible. But it's impractical to be completely ethical under capitalism, and it's more effective to focus on action over consumption. Let me know what you thought of this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, and if you want to support me, donate to Pro Animal Future or join my Patreon. Otherwise, I will see you next time.